What's up, everybody? I'm Nathan Graham Davis, and I'm going to re-break in as a Hollywood screenwriter. Before we get into this week's episode, I got a favor to ask you. Subscribe. I need 1,000 of you to do that so that YouTube will let me live stream a script reading of my completed script as a finale for this whole thing. So if you're getting any value out of these at all, please hit that little red button. Please share it with some friends. Thank you so much. All right, let's do this.
What's up, everybody? It is day 1 of week 8, which is crazy. It means that it is the last week of outlining, and a week from today, I'm actually going to be writing pages. So I've got 7 days to commit this whole messy one-pager outline type thing to a digital format and kind of smooth out my structure a little bit, do the research that I need to do, and then I'm going to be rolling. So here we go. I'm using Scrivener for the first time for a screenplay, by the way. It does have some things like templates for character sketches and setting sketches. I'm not going to use any of that shit, though. I'm just going to throw an outline under the notes here and try that out. I'm using Scrivener because a couple friends who are screenwriters recommended it to me. Usually you would use this for, the Great American Novel or short stories or something like that. But it syncs really well to my phone, and I like how stripped down and simple it is. So that's what we're going with. So my opening shot is my apprentice climbing a mountain and carving blazes into trees along the way. By the way, so I haven't named my characters yet, which is crazy to me. It's hard for me to visualize somebody without knowing their names, but the truth is that this particular project requires so much research that I don't even quite know where they live yet. And without knowing where they live, it's hard to name them in a way that's authentic, and I want this movie to feel grounded, so the names definitely need to be authentic. So right now, my main characters are called Apprentice and Witch. Actually, so the opening shot is a little more specific than that. Opening shot is the apprentice's breath fogs the air. And that's important because I wanted to open with something like breath or air. It just plays into the whole thing thematically and visually. So that does actually matter. So apprentice's breath actually fogs the cold mountain air as she climbs skyward. There, now I kind of sound like a writer, right? She carves blazes into the trees along to mark her path. Obstacles along the way, like streams, cliff bands. Had this idea where she takes off her shoes because, there aren't nice rubber treads on the bottom of shoes in the 12th century. Takes off shoes to get a better grip on the slick rock. Reaches an outlook high up on the mountain. Looks to the valley below. Nothing but clouds and tall conifers. Clouds part momentarily, revealing a stone cottage in the center of a small glade. Boom. So that's the first couple scenes. Really, it's just about kind of showing this woman's determination and that she's going after one very specific thing, no matter what it takes. One challenge that I had figuring out what to do here right off the bat was, back in the day, there's no GPS. There aren't any easy trails that she would be able to find to get up to this place and find where it is. So I figured the most logical way to do it for her, once she had a general idea of where this witch's hut was would be to climb a nearby mountain and have a look around. So that's what she's doing. In a couple days, I'm going to be connecting with my friend Dalan, who's an amazing writer with a lot of experience in both film and TV, and looking forward to getting his insights on outlining. So maybe that'll help me tweak things along the way. But I'm going to keep working until then because I got a couple days. However, you get to hear from him now.
Dude, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Right.
Yeah.
What's mutascale?
Oh, so the mutascale is
Mutascale.
how wrestlers' blade jobs, how much they're bleeding is judged by.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. I forget when. So the Great Muta, Keiji Muto, sort of set the record at, I want to say, was it like, if I say this wrong, like you're going to get a bunch of internet wrestling guys coming on and being like, "Your guest."
There are a couple who watch this already too, so you better get it right.
Oh no! In fact, I'm just going to Google this secretly in this other screen, and we can cut this part, and it'll sound like we retake the question in a second. So this was in I don't know. There's a lot of and match in '92 versus Hiroshi Hase. He set the standard for pro wrestling blade jobs.
Okay, so now is there a video that I can watch to see how much blood there is?
If you look up 1992 Hiroshi Hase versus Great Muta, and I apologize for butchering Hase's name, no doubt. If you look that up, you will see the man is he's not doing so well on the whole maintaining platelets thing.
All right.
But, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it seems like
fan.
it's worth watching. So,
it is definitely worth watching. I mean, you could probably just look up an image and catch it, but you get the basic concept.
So that's one of those shirts that's made to look like it's a metal band, but it's really just for wrestlers who are seriously in the know.
Why not both?
Or why not? It should be a metal band, actually. It's a pretty good band name. Is there? Can you keep Googling? Is there a band called Mutascale?
I mean, everything that when I find Mutascale, everything is about the Great Muta, not a metal band. So I'm gonna say. So let's see if that comes up.
Solid.
Yeah,
Solid.
That's Muta at his finest. But I don't think you can see my blading scars anymore from the old days.
I've seen pictures, so I know that you legitimately did that shit.
Yeah, for a little while. It was something. I mean, you got to do something when you're in your early to mid 20s. Like, what else is there in the world except
and blading and getting tattoos and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, really good long-term health benefits to all that kind of stuff. That's about as close as I ever got. But that was hard work.
That's as good as bloodletting or leeches.
Yeah, no, it got all the ghosts out.
Right. For sure.
So,
well, dude, it's good to see you. So, you texted me and said you were letting the dog out to piss. So, are you still saving puppies?
Yeah, I have a foster dog right now. I have
That's awesome.
He's a Dane Mastiff, and he thinks he's the size of a wiener dog. So he's like, "Oh, I'll sit in your lap. What's the problem? I don't get it."
That's awesome.
Yeah, scared of his own shadow.
You project yourself as this kind of really tough as nails guys, but you were a softie, for sure.
It's true. I don't project myself like that. The world sees it. That's just
the world sees pictures of you bleeding and just assumes.
They're like, that guy's got a bloody face. He's got a Mike Hagar mustache. And with that segue.
Yeah, right. It's all been recorded. I have no idea if it's going to make it in. But,
cut it out. Cut it out.
Look, if people get nothing else other than Mutascale, I think this offered value.
It's important. No, that is an important thing to be able to take with you through the rest of your life.
Totally.
Is where do I fall on the Mutascale? on my own personal injuries. When you look at it, you know, you get in a car accident, you go, you know what, this is only a 0.4.
I'm totally, so I bleed all the time. Like, you know, I tell people 5 to 10% of my body is scab at any one point, just because
Why?
trail running and mountain biking, like I'm clumsy, but I do those things anyway. So, you know, I just bleed a lot. And now that I have the Muda scale, this is definitely, it's entering the Nate Davis dictionary.
Good.
So
Okay.
good.
You can start doing live updates when you skin your knee like a 7-year-old.
Yeah. My son knocked his tooth out on a bike jump too, so he's coming right after me.
That is what I'm talking about. That is how you know you're growing up right. If you knocked your tooth out jumping your bike,
totally.
You're doing it right.
And I feel really good about it too, because that is the best possible injury he could have gotten, right? Think about it. Like, it's a baby tooth.
Yeah.
So it's going to grow back.
Yeah.
Break anything. Like, you know, he doesn't have any real permanent scar, but it was enough to knock some sense into him.
Yeah. And it is it's what we call an easy lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Tooth was coming out. So you just hurried things along.
A couple years early, but that's fine. We're good with it.
What's the difference?
So dude, in 45 seconds, catch me up on the last 5 years.
Oh God. Didn't work a ton. Wrote some stuff, got a job with Marvel.
Well done.
Learned how to grow sunchokes.
What are sunchokes?
They're like top is like a tiny sunflower and bottom is like a slightly sweeter potato.
Oh, all right. So are you getting seeds and root vegetables out of the same plant?
No, it's just roots.
Oh, all right.
It's just like you cut them up into pieces and then you literally just throw them in the ground and then just they grow. They're like weeds. But they're potatoes. They're potatoes. They just have a slightly nuttier flavor. They're not as sweet as a sweet potato, but not as potatoey as a potato. So
this is good because, you know, I'm learning a lot, not about screenwriting, but I'm learning a lot of things. All right. So
I think, by the way, I think that is my ultimate value is not being is the old jack of all trades, master of none. Oftentimes better than master of one.
So you didn't work a ton, but then you got a job at Marvel. So that's
incredible. I can't even try to downplay it. I can't hide my excitement. Can't you tell?
I mean, that's what you've been targeting basically this whole time, right? Like something in that like big arena, huge character space, right?
When people used to ask me when I was first starting out, and people would say to me, what kind of stuff do you write / what kind of stuff do you want to write? I would say Marvel. I don't work at Marvel, but I write Marvel movies like when I'm out in civilian world, and they say, oh, what kind of stuff do you write? And I say, like Marvel movies, but I don't work at Marvel. And then in the business, when they say, what kind of stuff do you want to work on? I would say Marvel movies. Yeah. Big, bombastic, character driven, lots of great moments, big fun, 4-quadrant, all the buzzwords, but genuine. I mean, and you know, I can talk about that place forever, but I'm sure other people on YouTube have done that better than me. It's a dream come true. I have what I call the 12-year-old rule, which is if 12-year-old you stepped out of a time machine and saw current modern day you today, would they think you were cool or lame? And that is the only judge of life that I find I put any stock in. And if 12-year-old me stepped out of that time machine and he had like a rat tail and a body glove fanny pack, and he was like, what are you doing? And I said, I just finished working on a TV show for Marvel. He would be like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. And I work with great people and all the positive things that people say because they're supposed to, I say it and I genuinely mean it.
Dude, that's
it was
fucking
just
awesome.
The best thing in the world.
Like I can tell like how much you genuinely mean it. And it's just exciting to see. So this is Wrapped, which is the most amazing thing ever. And you got to be
Yes.
at least a little bit like, shit, what do I do from here? Like, because this is such a high level, right? No?
Nope.
Are you just going to ride the good feelings for the next
Do you
however long?
mean I'm worried about what's next, or do you mean I have to do something that's on that level, or like I don't.
Like that type of thing, right? Like it's like, oh, you just reached what is kind of like a pinnacle for a lot of people, right? Like, I
100%.
mean, you know, so
Mhm.
so like, where do you take that? Where do you take that momentum and energy and amazingness?
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
I get to
matter.
I get to go
You're
have
zen
fun.
as fuck about this, dude. It's kind of awesome.
I'll tell you this. I look at, and like, I mean, my degree in economics is long since gone by the wayside. But when you look at the demand for growth year after year in companies, right? It's not sustainable. And what you end up getting is people doing things like cutting cost by treating their employees like crap and cutting the quality of their products so that they can pay out higher dividends, so that blah, 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 right? Companies don't have to grow every year. There's going to be natural contractions. Sometimes you're going to sell 1,000 widgets, and sometimes you're going to sell 800 widgets. Because you're selling 800, it doesn't mean anything's wrong, unless the next year you sell 600, and the next year you sell 400, and the next year you sell 50. Then you did something wrong. But if you sell 1,000, and then 900, and then 1,100, and then 1,000, that's just natural. It's just what happens. And I don't know that. Listen, I might never do anything this rad again, and that's fine, because I think you have to find something amazing in every project. And like, frankly, right now I'm out pitching like a children's cartoon, and I'm really excited about it. And is that as high profile as The Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming next year on Disney Plus? No. But am I personally going to have fun and enjoy myself and be happy about it? Yes. And I look at, like, I just finished reading Andre Agassi's biography, and one thing that this does have a point, I promise. One thing that keeps coming up is he hates tennis and has always hated tennis. And did he make millions of dollars? Yes. And is he world famous? Yes. But was he happy about it? Doesn't sound like it, not from this book. And I mean, those millions of dollars can buy a lot of happiness points, but maybe he didn't want to have all those horrible experiences to go along with it. I don't know. I feel like there's so much outside of my control. I'm just going to appreciate what's happening and what I am in control of, and do my best, whatever comes up. And I don't know.
Dude, what's fucking awesome is it doesn't sound at all like you're feeding me a line of bullshit.
I am not. This is not a
that's
practiced.
super cool.
Thank you. This is not a practice thing. I'm here to give you. 5 years ago, I was working on Iron Sky 2,
Right.
which out on Netflix, which was such a fun, cool, awesome experience, and I loved every single minute of it. That was the highlight of my career, and still is a highlight of my career. I mean, I don't know. How was that movie received? I literally have no idea. I've never looked at Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know. I have
You haven't
fun?
looked at like scores and shit like on your movie?
Never do. What good's it
I
gonna
would
do?
never be able to avoid that. Like I know myself.
Let me ask you this from a philosophical standpoint. Now I'm getting my degree in philosophy put to good use.
Wait, you've got a degree in economics and philosophy?
I have neither, in fact, which is the secret. That's fiction. That is fiction. No, I don't.
Writer.
Yeah. No, I barely made it out of high school.
I didn't graduate college, so
I went to one semester of community college. I look at it like this. What purpose will that serve? Will it make me, if it's a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes, it's not a 98. If it's a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes, will that make my life better? And if it's a 50 on Rotten Tomatoes, will it make my life worse? And the answer is no and yes. It can only bring feelings of like hurt and sadness and shame and all those things for me. Other people, I don't know.
You're 100% right. I just don't know how you resist the temptation.
Why would you ever do it? Why would you do it? Hey, I wonder what heroin's like. I don't know. It probably sucks. Don't try it. Oh, it makes you feel amazing. Okay. And then what? And then what happens? To what end? The most important question anybody ever asked me about the steps that I was about to take. To what end? And to what end are you looking at Rotten Tomatoes? What are you hoping to get out of it? And what are you hoping to accomplish? And the answer is nothing. You will gain nothing. Now, is it worth reading a review or a critique and learning what may or may not have happened and what you may or may not have done wrong and blah, 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 blah? Is it worth watching analyses of your own work to learn what people liked and what people didn't and things like that? Probably. But I don't know. I mean, I genuinely don't know the answer to that.
Did you do any of that? Have you read any reviews or anything like that?
No.
Wow.
Because all it's going to do is bum me out. I'll tell you this. One of the myriad things that drove me out of the independent wrestling scene way back in the day was, and these were well-deserved, my matches got terrible reviews. I was a bad wrestler and people just talked shit. And it just hurt my feelings. And it hurt my feelings because I was like, look, I'm going out there and I'm trying my best. I'm not very good. So I'm doing so. I was like a hardcore wrestler. I was right at the tail end of like the ECW stuff. So it's like the only thing I could do was have like a barbed wire table match. And people just hated it and they thought I sucked and they were right. But it hurt my feelings to read that every day. So I was like, you know what? This is one of the myriad reasons I'm going to quit because it just bums me out. And I really liked being an independent league pro wrestler. It was a lot of fun. And so I was like, am I going to let other people's opinion of stuff affect my ability to have fun? So I really like writing. I think it's great. And I enjoy sitting at my desk and like yanking what's left of my hair out, trying to figure out the most fun and best way to do things that I think are cool. And then if somebody doesn't like it, I don't know, what's that going to do for me? Like, that's not going to make me feel better. It's not going to make me a better writer. Now, if my producer or director or any of my friends that I have tremendous respect for and are amazing writers and can analyze story and see things that I can't, can talk to me through and say, hey, this isn't really working, or, you know, I get amazing notes from my managers. That's constructive. That's constructive criticism. But an online review or critique, I think we can all agree that is not couched in constructive criticism.
Definitely not.
That's not where it lives.
Dude, I love this philosophy. I still don't think, like, so I haven't had a movie come out, obviously, but I had a graphic novel. And I was neurotic about checking those reviews. And thankfully, most of them were pretty good. But there were a couple people that absolutely hated it. And yeah, that stuff cut really deep.
Yeah, so, exactly. And the ones that liked it, it didn't prop you up as much, did it?
No, because you know what? I don't remember. Like, I mean, I know that they existed and I can kind of remember little bits of them, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you what website to find those on or whatever, right? Like, but the ones that were negative, yeah, I remember for sure.
I think all that stuff has value as its own kind of writing, and critique is amazing and valuable and blah, 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 blah. But I don't think it helps us. I don't think it helps us as a creator on our own stuff. Because it's too personal.
Dude, this is a great conversation. This is obviously not where I was planning to take it at all, but
We'll
I
get
think
there,
it's
don't
so
worry.
valuable. No, it's fucking, this is great shit. And I'm curious because I bet you have a way to kind of draw this all together. So you sent me 2 specs
Yeah.
that you'd written, and told me about a third one that you're doing with Mal. And you sent me those because you outlined them in a very different way.
Yes.
And we
Correct.
could have an interesting conversation about outlining, which is what I'm doing right now. But I asked you what the story was with them, and you said it was boring, nothing happened. And I thought that would actually be interesting to talk about because, a recurring theme with every one of these conversations so far is like how hard this game is, right? Like
Totally.
everybody has had, some really low, barren times, right?
Yes.
And throughout their career. And so I think it's important to talk about that because for my part, I got torpedoed a couple times and I was like, fuck this, I'm going to go make a graphic novel. And then I never really came back, until now. And I'm like, it's 2020. The world is going to end. I'd like to see my name in the credits at least once before that happens. So, but I shouldn't have walked away, right? Like, I mean, in 6 years, I might have been able to actually scrap something together in that time if I had just kept going hard. And, it's so what I'm curious about is like what you're talking about, like this attitude that you have, it's got to somehow be related to what's kept you through all these times, right?
So one of the things, I'm very proud of this. I was speaking at a college in Australia, like a screenwriter, like the master's screenwriting program or something. How I ended up there, I was like, I don't know. But we were talking about process. And I said, I'll skip to the end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There are only more tunnels. So you have to enjoy walking down them. It doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better. Because every day you wake up and you open up the page and you sit and you make difficult decisions and you smash the keyboard over, you agonize over the decisions of who's going to say what and where and what order these things go in. And you bang something together and you get notes back on it. You rage against the notes and you do the notes and then you turn it in and you get responses and people like it or people don't. And you have your responses to their responses and everything. It never changes. The most successful writers in the world do something very, very similar. They just get more money for it. And there's probably less negative responses, but who knows? Everybody passed on Star Wars, blah, 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 blah. There's plenty of people did buy every single script. And, I think the reason that you hear so many stories of bad times and perseverance from successful people is because you don't hear the concurrent 1 million stories of bad times and lack of success from everyone that just quit. Because at the end of the day, I think this is a war of attrition. And the way most people lose is by quitting. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, but I think it's true.
If you stop having fun, like you're talking about, for you specifically, you at the end, you had a 6-year run and you went, dude, this isn't fun. I don't like this. So why are you doing it?
I had a 2-year run. Like I spent 7 or 8 years breaking in.
Oh, it was 6
and I stuck
years
with
ago.
It. Right. But I stuck with it that whole time. And then I broke in and I only had a couple of things that really went south. And that was kind of enough for me to be like, fuck this. Like I'm going to go write a graphic novel because I have complete control over that and I can do whatever I want. And it's going to be awesome. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. But then I kind of, was out of it and never came back. And I think it's totally valid for you to talk about how it is a war of attrition. And, the people who quit are you're not going to hear from them.
Probably, and by the way, probably the happier for it.
Maybe
Because
because look at me. Like I'm coming back, right? Like all this shit still has its hooks in me, and I think over the last 6 years, it was just kind of building up over time, you know, just
Sure.
a little bit at a time, until finally I had to admit to myself that, because I had told myself I was done. Like, I don't need this. I don't want this anymore.
Right.
And then finally I was like, okay, if I don't jump back in now and really go after it, I'm going to regret it seriously. Like, never having given it a real shot.
But let me ask you this. Are you enjoying this process right now?
Yeah. Sure.
That is what matters, because that's what you can control. And to me, that's the only part that means anything, is that you are enjoying this, and this is your success.
Yeah, I'm having a blast
fun.
outlining the script that I'm doing.
That's what matters.
I don't know if you watched any of the shit that I did so far,
Of course.
but like, did you?
Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
man of research.
Okay. So, you know, then you saw that I was kind of chasing down some ideas that were a little bit more commercial, and Malk and then Ben and Jake kind of pushed me back towards something that was a little bit closer to what is more me. And that was totally the right thing. And I'm having a blast doing it. I don't know if it's something that anybody will want, but
that doesn't
fun.
matter.
So
you can't control that.
Yeah.
You can't control what other people will want. I look at it like there's 2 things you can control, 98 things you can't, and 100 things have to go right. What are you going to do?
Sure.
Nobody's making Westerns until somebody makes a Western.
So
Nobody
how much
does
of
this.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to rant for.
How much of this like PMA did you have when you started out in this game, and how much of it did you kind of have to develop?
I was a couple years in, and I got hit with a couple torpedoes pretty hard, and it got me. And it's funny because Malcolm called me and I was talking to him about something, and he said, "I'm glad to know that you're human, because your unrelenting positivity when it comes to this stuff has driven me insane." And the fact that it finally got you makes me feel a little bit better, like that you are a human and not just this let's keep on trucking kind of robot. Yeah, but you know what? I got to a place, and again, I mean, not to sound too new agey frou-frou, but like my personal philosophical approach toward real life, for lack of a better term, it works perfectly for here. My approach toward lifting weights in the gym, my approach toward literally life, my approach toward writing. I'm going to control the things I can control, and I'm going to do my best given the circumstances I'm given, but I can't control the circumstances. I can't.
Sure.
I have no control over the reception of something that I wrote. I don't live inside your head or a producer's head or a studio executive's head. I mean, I could tell you the long and the short of it, of the first thing I ever sold. If you went out with a spec script, got a ton of, I believe I got something like 250 meetings the first calendar year that I was out with this, because it was a big bombastic blah 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 blah. People loved it. Did some development and some pitching the same way everybody does, right? A year and a half later, it sold. And I finally got the story. I was like, how on earth did this happen? Script goes out, executive takes it into his boss, pitches it. The boss is interested. There's another executive that kind of MFs it in the room and kills the sale. Right? Don't have any control over that.
Right.
Something happens, this happens, blah, 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 blah. The guy leaves the company. A new person is instilled as the president of production. That person happens to be thick as thieves with this producer, with this studio executive that loves that project. The dust settles. This is a year and a half later. He walks into the dude's office and is like, yo, can I do my Viking project? And the guy's like, I don't give a fuck. Year and a half later, out of nowhere, bro. Out of nowhere. I was in a hotel room getting ready to go to the premiere of Malcolm's first movie. So excited for him. This is how deeply our relationship rolls. So excited for him. And I get a call from my agent and I had to go sit outside in the hallway. And Malcolm came around the corner because we were all going to walk down to the premiere, and he got this look on his face and he said, I thought somebody had died when I saw you on the phone. But anyway, I can always take myself back to that moment because when things get weird, I'm like, no, but that still happened. That was fun. So I had no control over any of that. How am I going to control who gets instilled as the president of production at a studio but I don't have any control over that shit.
None.
The only thing I can control is I wrote a script that somebody liked, but I can't control who liked it. So I'm like, man, I don't know. Again, I can talk about every project that's ever been torpedoed. Like 80% of them has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with some stuff that, bro, I just lost out on a job because of the civil unrest that's happening in Belarus right now. I lost out on a job because Steve Mnuchin got appointed Treasury Secretary. I've lost out on jobs for so many weird reasons, like geopolitical. What? That has nothing to do with me. I'm going to be mad. What am I going to do? I'm going to be bummed out that some people are marching against a dictator in an Eastern European country. That has nothing to do with me. Why am I going to be bummed out about it? I mean, listen, I want that job. I would like to do that work, but that's not a reflection on me as a human being. If I walk into a room and they're like, look, we love this idea, but you're ugly and stupid, then yeah, okay, that's personal.
Yeah, I mean, you could have done something about your looks. There's lots of options in Hollywood.
I know, I could have years ago, but I committed to this. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with that look. And they're like, this is a bold choice. Hasn't worked out so well, but doing my best.
But you're still trying, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks. This is clearly tons of effort.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, again, it's all back to the T-shirt choice, which I do think was good. You may have to go to costume change soon, but it's working.
Yeah.
So
I'll flop it around.
So, all right. So let's get back to craft and shit. Now that we've talked about how all you can control is what you put on the page, right?
Yeah.
So you sent me Sinbad, which is fun 4-quadrant action comedy, right?
Yep.
Which honestly, I was reading that and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that I really used to like writing shit like this, but now I'm like dark thriller guy. So maybe someday I'll do that again. But anyway, that was really fun. And you said that that was, standard plot points, right? And you outlined it that way. And then you had Gaze Long into the Abyss, which you said you really didn't outline that in a standard way at all.
I did not. No, not even a little bit.
And then Lean In with Mal, which is, I mean, it sounds like you basically did almost a TV beat sheet for that shit. Like
yes, that is the best way to describe it. I'm worried that this will be unhelpfully broad, but I will do my best to be specific when appropriate. I outline depending on the project. Each project needs a different kind of outline. I don't just do, I apply the Screenwriting 434 template.
Sure,
or I do Sid Field, but plenty of people do that, by the way. And plenty of people, it works amazing because that's what helps. All you're trying to do is organize stuff in your brain.
Right.
And whatever version of that you have to do works. There's no right way. And certainly what I say is not the way to do things. It's the way I do.
So what
things
made you think?
and hope.
Sorry,
No.
I was just gonna say what made you think with Sinbad like that it needed that kind of structure where you were gonna anchor in all these 24 plot points in order to draw it out.
So Sinbad, big adventure story, right? You want to have some twists and turns so that it's fun, but that is character, that is fun moments, that's poppy. And so you don't want to put a hat on a hat with some weird, it can't be Memento. You can't invert traditional storytelling like that. Not for me. I mean, of course you can do that. But that wasn't what I was trying to do. I was trying to tell a traditional adventure story and tell a traditional adventure story in a fun, new way that I thought was interesting. So I didn't need to play with the structure. The existing 3-4 act structure is fine. And it works for a reason. And it worked, and it allowed me to tell a really fun story in a very straightforward way. So that was a more traditional story, and I didn't feel like I needed more than a traditional outline. And that is not, I say this with zero, there's no judgment, anything like that. That is what worked for that project. Lean In was an assignment that I wrote with Malcolm, and Malcolm having such a heavy presence in television now, premiere television. We sat down and sort of discussed the big overarching story beats and the arc of our character. What was our character going to do? We kind of knew that this was going to be, this type of movie. It's a road trip movie. And so we sort of know the beginning and the end. We know what has to happen. So we can start filling it in backwards, right? We know at the end, this happens. So for that to have meaning, what needs to happen to make us feel that at the end? And then so we know, okay, well, this moment has to happen. I'm just using this as an example. This is not actually our movie. If at the end, those two are going to break up, we know that they have to be together. So we have to get them together. So we have to do this. So if we have them get together, we have to have them meet. And we would just work backwards. And we would work backwards to fill in the big moments that we knew needed to happen. And now that we have the big moments and the big beats and the big rhythm of the whole movie, then you start filling in the little bits in between. And then once we knew those big moments, we would literally sit in Fade In, screenwriting software, and we would outline with slug lines and everything. Because we knew at the end they're going to be here and this is going to happen. And we would just type it like in prose. These characters arrive here, they have this fight, and it's because of these reasons. They have it out between them, and they finally come to terms with this loss or this victory or this whatever. And we just talk about it like that. We talk about what has to happen in the scene as though we were summarizing it, right? And so your outline ends up being like 45 or 50 pages. So I know when I sit down to write a scene, if I have an outline description that's half a page, and I know Dalan and Nate sit down, and it's the first time they've seen each other since Nate got out of jail. And Dalan knows he's the reason Nate went to jail, but Nate doesn't know that. And by the end of the scene, Dalan is going to reveal that to Nate. You have twists and turns in the dialogue, and you can make that as fun and as kind of subtle or as on the nose as you want, but you know where you're going. And so the scene can be what it is. And if, Malcolm in this case, but if you were writing the next scene, you know that at the end of that previous scene, Nate goes home and he feels betrayed. So he does X, Y, and Z and blah, 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 blah. So you need something like that to be able to write that thing well. We did in that situation. Gaze Long into the Abyss was a totally different, and I don't suggest this. I had a basic idea of what I wanted it to be. It started as a pitch that was summarily dismissed. And I changed it into what that script is. It was originally a pitch based on existing IP. And they were like, we hate that idea so much, like, we're just going to hang up the phone. And they passed. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go write a spec based on an existing monster franchise, because that doesn't make any sense. So why don't I change it? And why don't I strip that IP out and I just tell that story, right? And I knew that this is sort of Unforgiven with a supernatural element to it. And I kind of knew the general beginning, middle, end. And what I did, and this is, I do not recommend this, I storyboarded it.
Like you
I
drew it
literally
out.
just storyboarded it out of my head. And I mean, I'm the hands down worst artist you've ever seen. Like, I can't functionally draw a human figure. Like, stick figures look like they have something horribly wrong with them. But I was just telling the story kind of visually. And I just had this storyboard, and I sketched probably like drew grids and just sketched probably like 60 or 70 little, like, they're on a boat, and then this thing happens, and then just wrote the script.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. I think that you are the first person I've spoken to who is outlined by storyboarding.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. It's a terrible idea. And and then, by the way, like, on the other end of things, like Iron Sky 2, I love this story. The director, Timo Varensala, had some ideas for what he wanted to do after his, cult classic Iron Sky 1. And he had some ideas for what he wanted to do. And he kind of sent me a couple pages and was like, come to Finland and let's talk about this. And we sat down in his offices. Yeah, we sat down in his offices in a basement in Helsinki in January. It was -37. I got some frostbite, frostnip, first degree. And we sat down and we just had cards. And it was like old timey, like, studio system stuff. Like, we just were magneting cards up on the wall and just throwing ideas out there, and like, oh, well, if this happens, then this would need to happen afterward. This would need to make sense. Again, we had a general sense of what was going to happen at the end, and we just worked our way backwards. And what was interesting is, at the end of that week, probably 80%, 85%, I still have a picture of the wall, like a panorama, because I had to go write the movie. Probably 80%, 85% of what was up on that wall ended up on screen, like in the finished product.
No shit.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of skip. Yeah, it's when you're dealing with an independently financed film and you're, working on the story with the man who's the ultimate arbiter of what happens, who's going to direct the thing. Like, there's no intermediary. And working with people, getting a second brain and a second set of eyes. I mean, even these days, when I outline new things, I pitch it to people and run it past people and get ideas back and just engage as much as I can with, like, my core group of people that I respect and know and trust. Because you can't think of everything, and you get very forced from the trees about things, and a problem that I might have with a sequence or this or whatever, somebody else comes in, and there's the old the kind of classic story about, like, it's in the 40s and everyone's sitting at their typewriters writing the Philadelphia Story or whatever genius movies, and someone's staring at their movie and they can't get it to work, and, like, you know, someone else walks up and just swaps two of the index cards
Sure.
and it fixes the whole film. And it's like, that's not that far off from the truth sometimes, where someone else can look at it from the outside and go, hold on, dude, you're overcomplicating this for no reason. Like, one of the things that I try and remind myself is like, the answer to a problem in your story is never to make it more complicated. If the solution is to add like 5 steps, you're probably not solving it. You're probably just giving yourselves more questions to answer. And that's not what's fun. Some people beat the crap out of things in outline form, like when they're actually writing the outline, so much so that their first draft is a lot closer to the last draft.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be a little bit more loosey-goosey. I tend to get some ideas out, beat out my basic beginning, middle, end, and let me just write something real quick and kind of find it, find where my themes are, find kind of where, oh gosh, you know what really needed to happen at the end of the second act? My original ending, and this didn't really work. And for me, like that 50-page outline, man, that script comes out like that. Super tight, da-da-da-da. But like you said, still probably going to lose 40-60% of it.
Do you have any common, you know, are there any common threads to your processes at all? Or?
I would say the only thing probably that I can think of off the top is I just always know what my ending is. But I shouldn't speak for literally everybody. I just assume everybody does. But I just kind of know what I'm writing to. And for me, it then becomes easier to fill in backwards.
What about like character or, you know, themes,
oh yeah,
things
sorry.
like that? Like how much of that plays?
I'm thinking outlining purely in terms of story.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I feel like character, and not to say that you asked the question unclearly or anything. That's my silly brain.
That's very possible. I am not a professional interviewer.
It's fine. I've had a lot of closed head injuries, so God knows what's going on in here. I think, I mean, the character stuff, you have to just have like, that has to be just tight as a drum.
Okay, so talk to me about that. Like, what do you mean by character stuff that has to be tight as a drum?
You just have to know. I think that you have to know before you start outlining, before anything, you have to know who those characters are. Mm-hmm. And I always joke with people that my favorite character descriptions and favorite character bios ever are in the opening theme music to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original cartoon. You know everything you need to know about those characters in those 4 lines.
Oh,
Leonardo
man.
leads, Donatello does machines, Raphael is cool but rude,
right.
Michelangelo's a party dude. That's it.
Oh man,
those are your characters. Look, I get it's
You're
a kid's
bringing
cartoon.
it back.
I get that it's a kid's cartoon, but if you wanted to make My Dinner with Andre with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you could sit down and write that script right now because you know who those 4 characters are. And you could layer them and make them do interesting things and blah, 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 blah. But you get it. It's overly simplified, and obviously I'm saying this to make a point. But you got to know those guys, man. You have to have your characters down. And if it's writing a bio, like one of my favorite things ever, and one of the first things I ever collected as a kid was the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, where they did the bios and the stats on all the different characters, right?
Sure.
Big fan. I literally do a version of that for my characters.
Do you really?
Sometimes.
Wow. Did you do that so was that like a Sinbad type exercise, or did you do that for any of the other scripts that we were talking about? That
was specifically, I did do it on Sinbad.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so Minerva, our main character, she's like this. She grew up in these circumstances. These are the things, so that I know. A lot of that stuff is never going to come out.
How many hit points did she have? Did you figure that out?
Well, she's a 5th level rogue, and so she's only rolling a d6.
Okay.
So not a huge Constitution bonus. She's mostly a dodge and evade kind of player, mostly hit from afar. You know, she's not the frontline tank.
Yeah.
She would probably be high 20s at best. But so now I'm thinking about D&D. But for that, I wanted to know who she was and what had happened and everything like that. So it can, in scenes where I know, look, here's what's happening in the scene, but that's not what's interesting. A big kraken attacks them. How does she react? How does she interact with the other people? She wants to be a leader, but she doesn't believe in herself. That affects everything that she does. And that's what speaks to the action, right? It isn't a monster attacks and then she does this and then she does this and then she does. It's boring. That's just things. That's things happening. Why is it happening? That's driven by character. Blah, 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 blah. I do a lot of that. Sometimes, like in Gaze Long into the Abyss, I kind of found the characters as I wrote. And then I went back through and rewrote the whole thing because I found the characters. And I find that happens a lot for me is I get to the end and I reread it and I think, oh, turns out that's the theme. Weird. Now I got to rewrite the whole movie. Now that I've rewritten the whole movie with theme in mind, I'm like, this character trait just isn't landing properly because it doesn't feel genuine or it doesn't feel honest. And that means I have to rewrite that whole character. But if that character changes, then everyone else's responses to that character are going to change. So now you just got to rewrite the whole thing. And that goes back to my first draft just being a long outline in essence, because you can't find that until you write the script.
Sure. Yep.
So
how many rewrites do you usually do on a script? That's fact.
Oh boy.
Real
Sinbad probably, I don't know, less than half a dozen. Because I had probably wrote a draft, got some notes, did a minor rewrite, figured out what the movie actually had to be, and then did a big rewrite, and then did some notes based off that, that kind of process. Gaze was noodling more than anything. I kind of knew what that movie was from the beginning, and I had such a sort of detailed outline process, and that really isn't a movie that the structure doesn't really mean anything. It's about those two characters. It's Unforgiven meets My Dinner with Andre, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's not structured. Lean In was a lot more because, we're really finding it's a culture piece, and it really is heavily about those characters, and it has to be authentic. And we really worked hard to make sure everything really resonated and landed, and everything had to feel honest. And so we did a lot of character work on that. And yeah, they're all, they all need a little bit of something different. It's like baby. You don't just say, all right, well, here's the box that you put your baby in, and it just grows up and becomes a person, I guess.
No, that is how it works. It's 2020, dude.
Here I am not raising my kids the old-fashioned way. Come here, pepperoni.
Oh, do I get to see the dog?
I can bring him over.
Yeah, you should bring him over. That's going to instantly make this the most watched one of these.
Come here, Fatso. He's in the middle of playing with this marrow bone. Come here. You can come up here. He knows he's not supposed to come into he's not supposed to come into a lap unless he's invited.
Oh man.
Come here.
Look at that guy.
Come here. Come up here. Come up here, Chunko. Hi, baby. Excuse
Dude,
me.
he is huge.
You're very humongous. Yes, he is.
Oh man, what's his name?
George.
Yeah,
he's delightful.
That's cool, dude.
Pepperoni. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, again, every project just kind of requires its own little, different brush, different palette. And I think, certainly when I was starting out, I thought there was a process. I thought there was a way, and I just was chasing the way and trying to figure it out. And these days, I realize as I get more comfortable and I get more confident, I realize that any way is okay. I mean, I would equate, this is going to be a ridiculous analogy, but it's like quitting smoking. It doesn't matter if you use the patch or the gum or hypnosis, or you go to a meeting, or you quit cold turkey or whatever. They all work or not, but no one way is going to work for anybody. And so you just find the way that works right for you. And so that's what I try and do.
Yeah,
I try and find whatever any individual project needs. I try and give it that. So
it's yeah, I mean, outlining especially, I think, is a really personal process. I mean, and
Totally.
that's one thing that I realized early on, is that everybody's got a different approach to it, and they often change from time to time. But it's been really fun to talk to people about it, just because, I don't know, in my process, it always changes every script, and usually I pick up something new along the way, and I'm like, I'm going to try that, and
yes,
it just unlocks a new door, you know, and creates new mental neural pathways that allow me to do something interesting. So
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I think it makes the stuff better. Again, it's just, outlining is just a way to get the stuff straight in your head.
Sure.
That's all it is. And
yeah,
as long as
it's about
as long as it makes
movie
sense
on the
to
page.
you, as long as it makes sense to you, like, get it out.
Well, anyway, dude, I've taken up a lot of your time, so thank you for all that. It's really good to connect again.
Feels like it just flew by.
Well, good. And I learned about Muda scale, and I learned about, what was the name of that plant again?
Oh, the sunchokes. They are also commonly referred to as Jerusalem artichokes.
Oh,
I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm gonna harvest. I'm gonna try harvesting again in a few days. Let's see what happens.
Well,
old Farmer Dalan.
Yeah, man, get out your scythe. It's gonna be good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how you dig things up these days, is with a scythe.
Yeah.
So, puppy, stop it.
I'll lend you my Peasants in the Middle Ages book.
The dog is.
It's my current research.
Oh, you just had that handy.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Dude,
attic.
I love the research phase, and I just happen to pick a project that requires way too much. So I'm reading a fuckload right now.
I don't know.
Because I'm a slow reader.
Research. I'm a big fan. I like research a lot. So it's
fun. Geeking out, you know?
This is exactly. And at the end of the day, whether it's a job or not, it is supposed to be enjoyable. And you find the stuff that you love about it. And I think you do that. So I hope. I don't know.
Dude, it's awesome to see you.
Have
a great rest of your night.
Have a good one. See you. Bye.
So that was not the conversation that I expected to have at all. I know that I set this up to be a conversation about outlining, and I know that it hardly was that, but I hope that you got some value out of it. I know that I definitely did. On top of learning about the Muda scale, I also learned that there are people in this world who just enjoy what they're doing so much and have so much fun doing it that they don't even check out their movie reviews. That to me is crazy. I am never going to be that guy. I just know that I don't have the discipline to not check out my movie reviews should I have them. I will have them, by the way. That's just not me. But the philosophy behind that is just, it's 100% right. And you know what I could do is live more in the moment and focus more on the fun of it all. And so that is something that I'm absolutely taking away. I love the idea of living life to the standard of what 12-year-old me would think was cool. I think I'm actually doing pretty okay in that department, but I could totally push it further and live more in the moment and have more fun. So that's awesome. On the topic of having fun, I just finished my outline, and that is so exciting because now I get to write actual pages, and that's what this is all about, right? Like, it's all been leading up to me writing pages because, like, I love to write. I'm a writer. So that's super exciting, and I can't wait to get going on them. Next week, I've got my friend Ryan Jackson coming on. We are, I think, going to talk about what makes a first 10 pages great. or the way these things are going and evolving, maybe it'll be something else. But we're going to talk about screenwriting, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for it. So hit subscribe so that you don't miss it. I will also be giving away another copy of Malice and Mistletoe, signed by myself and by Jack Purcell. If you want to grab that, we're just going to keep it fun this week on the topic of having fun. So I want to hear about the movie that made you want to make movies. Comment it below. For me, the first kind of huge special movie experience I remember was seeing Jurassic Park in theaters with my dad. It was not my first movie in theaters. The first one, true story, was my dad took me to see Predator when I was 6 months old, back when you could do that type of thing. So I love that. I think that's fucking awesome, but I don't remember it, so I don't get to claim it as an experience. But Jurassic Park, like, that was something special, and I knew that, like, I wanted movies in my life at that point. And then the next one was Fight Club. When I saw that movie, I knew that I actually wanted to make them. I just didn't know that movies could be like that, and it hit me in a way that they never had before. So those were both very, very special to me. So tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about the movies that made you want to be a filmmaker, whether it's a screenwriter, a director, or whatever it is that you do. And I will pick one of you and send you a copy of Malice and Mistletoe. And on the subject of you, for those of you who are doing this whole writing thing along with me, here are the action steps for week 8. Number 1, read a script. 5 or 6 weeks from now, you are going to be sending out your first draft for notes. So pay into that karma pool right now and give somebody the best notes that you can. Number 2, research. So I've been trying to read 10 to 15 pages every single day just from this big stack of books that I have. It's honestly a lot to do that on top of all the writing that I need to do and all this re-entry stuff that I need to do. And having kids and a family and a day job, it's not easy to get all that reading done, but I'll tell you what, it is adding so much more depth and texture to this story. Number 3, finish your outline. Put at least 60 minutes into this every single day, because next week we are starting pages. And that's it for week 8, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Go get your writing done. And also, if you didn't see my announcement last Sunday, go check that out, and then go check out the trailer for Cactus Jack. I am so excited about this. And that's it. So thanks very much, everybody. I'll see you next week. Smash cut to black.